What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the live masterclass. If you're a commercial apprentice, electrician trying to survive your first year out concrete walls, roughing out concrete walls, or your solar contractor trying to lower your material scrap rates, tonight Stream is built exactly for you. We are doing a completely raw life conduit bending layout masterclass. We are breaking down offsets, multipliers, and 3-point sellers. But most importantly, I'm showing you the exact mechanical tricks to fix an ugly twisted dog leg on the concrete floor in under 10 seconds before your journeyman spots it. Tap that subscribe button right now. Drop your location in the chat box so I know who is in the room, and let's pull our very first layout measurement. So we're going to go to the board, and if you want to bend a perfect offset, let's say for instance you want to do a 4-inch obstruction. So a 4-inch obstruction, if you want to do a 4-inch obstruction, okay, what you're going to do is you're going to take your marker and you're going to simply go here. You're going to go 4 times 2. So 4 times 2. Okay. So again, that's the multiplier that we start with. 4 times 2 is basically going to, let's see here, sorry about that, guys. So 4 times 2 equals 8. So that's basically how we go about our measurements. So 4 times 2, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be timesing your multiplier by 2. So this 4 becomes your offset measurement. So this is your offset. So again, if you can see right here, this 4 is basically your offset. This is going to be the measurement that you're going to take for your obstacle, basically 4. And this becomes your multiplier. So what that means is that becomes your multiplier. So 4 times 2. So 4 times 2 equals 8. And I'm going to show that to you here on the live stream, how we go about doing that. So basically what you have is you have your bender, okay, you have your measure, you have your degrees here, and basically what you're going to do is that mark there reflects off of here. Okay, so it's going to be a measurement. So 4 times 2. So how we arrive by that measurement is we've simply, so we have 4. You can take it here. You're going to place your mark here. That's your first mark that you're going to want to do to go over your obstacle. And you're going to turn around and you're going to times it by 2. And when you times it by 2, you're going to get 8. So that's what you have here. The 4 represent is your offset measurement. Is, let's not offset, sorry. It's going to be an obstruction. So let's say obstruction. So obstruction. So basically that 4 represent your obstruction. The 2 represent your multiplier. And when you times it 4 times 2, you're going to end up with 8. Okay. So that's basically your multiplier. So your multiplier becomes the 2.0. So basically an offset is basically, as you can see, I have a perfectly offset here already lined up and ready to go. And how we go about doing that offset is we simply slide the bender. We slide that bender. We slide the conduit inside the bender. So as you can see, my conduit is inside the bender. So that would be my first bend. My second bend, I will simply flip my bender 180 degrees. And I'm going to line it up. So where this bender, where this is going to line up, it's going to line up on the arrow here. Not the star, which is here. It's going to line up on the arrow. So that's how you're going to go about bending your perfect offset. So I'm going to explain to you what the star is used for. So here we have the star on the bender. As many of you might not be aware that we do use the star on the job site. The star is basically used to, when you use your star, you don't need to deduct. The star is basically going to give you a little bit extra on your pipe. It's going to take away that shrinkage that we are all afraid of. That shrinkage is what that shrinkage does, is it reduces your measurement. You're going to lose pipe. You're going to lose on the bend. So when you place your star, when you place your pipe on the star, so if I take my conduit, okay, and I wanted to bend and back to back 90, for instance, I'm going to take my pipe, so let's say we have a 90 here. As you can see, that's where your 90 will land. Now, if I wanted to do a second 90 on here, the star is what I'm going to be using. So essentially, I will take my bend, my mark, as you can see, if I have a mark here, if that's going to be my mark, my measurements for my second 90, I'm going to take that mark and I'm going to place it on the star. Once I place that on the star, what's going to happen now is it's going to allow me to have that perfect measurement that I need in order to get around my obstruction, or in order to turn at my walls or so on. So a back-to-back 90 is a lot of times are used depending on your measurements. So for instance, you'll come in here and you want to turn here, and you also want to turn here. You're going to, your measurement, your first 90 is going to be here. You're going to line up your pencil at 90, and you're going to come to here on your conduit. You're going to make your second bend. When you make your second bend on the star, again, you're making the second bend on the star. When you make that second bend on the star, it allows you to wind up where you want to be instead of losing on your conduit. So it's very important. You do not want to lose on the conduit. What you're trying to do is avoid the unnecessary turning, losing conduit, scrapping conduit, throwing your conduit in the scrap, as we all are aware that once you start to throw your conduit away, it's wasted material. So to avoid that, using the star on a back-to-back 90 can be achieved. You just have to know how to go about it. So again, for all those who are tuning into the live stream, welcome back to the live stream tonight. I'm Fabian from Fabian Electrical Products and Services, and also I do run another channel, Fabian Electrical Services Inc. You can head over to that channel, and that channel basically you will see a lot of more videos and content on that channel. That channel is my main channel, so you can also subscribe to that main channel to stay up to date to the content, the electrical tutorials and stuff that I do. Again, also when you are using EMT Conduit, you have to be aware of this type of stuff in here. What that is, as you can see, it needs to be reamed out. And how we achieve reaming out our conduit is you can either ream your conduit out with a reamer, but most guys who've been in the trade, like me, for 20 plus, we're going to use whatever we have on the job, whatever makes sense. And to ream this out, you can simply take your pliers and install it into here and simply twist like that, and your conduit is going to end up coming out clean. It's going to be reamed out perfectly, and I'm going to show you how that is done. So again, as you can see, I have all of that shaving inside of my conduit, which is no good when it comes to pulling cable. So to simply take care of that, you're going to ream it out. So this is what I do, and what I have been doing for years. I've never owned a reamer. I've always used my pliers to ream the conduit out. And as you can see, this little piece here, obviously you will need to get rid of that with the hacksaw or your bandsaw. And then what I will do also is I will take my pliers, I will put it into here, and I will go around out the edge also. So you need to shave the inner and the outer. So what I'm doing is cleaning both the inner and the outer. And now we're going to take a look at the inside, and you're going to see that the inside is completely shaved out. Everything is removed. Nothing is stopping the other person from pulling wire and damaging it. So if you take a look at this right now, you're going to see that the conduit is perfectly reamed out inside. So the reason why we ream out the conduit is to get rid of the excess metal that's in here shaving. It's not good for pulling cable. Once you start to pull your cable through the conduit that has a lot of shavings in it, you're going to simply damage the cable, nick the cable, and that's no good for the cable itself sitting inside of the conduit with live wires that has now began to come in contact with the EMT conduit. And again, it should make a bang, but of course it's electrical and it does a lot of funny stuff sometimes. So you want to avoid all of that. Make sure that when you're pulling your cable through the EMT conduit, you don't have the shavings inside. You want to make sure that everything is reamed out. You want to be able to put your finger inside and twist with no shavings inside. So that is basically how we go about reaming out 3/4 EMT conduit, whether it be 3/4 EMT, whether it be 1/2 inch EMT, whether it be 1 1/4 inch, 1 inch. That's how you go about reaming it. Of course, you can also ream it out with a file, which I do use a lot of times also on the bigger conduit. When it becomes bigger conduit, I don't use my pliers, of course. So when it becomes a bigger conduit, I don't use my pliers. What I use is what I will use is my file to clean out the conduit perfectly. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put this conduit into here. And again, right now what you have is your conduit, and I'm going to show you guys how I go about bending my conduit. Now with the bender placed like this, you have two options. One option to bend your conduit is basically one option to bend your conduit is you can take this bender and you can place your conduit on the floor like that, and you can take the conduit, you line it up like that, you place it on the floor, and you make your bend. Now when you are performing a bend like this, you want to make sure that your bend is perfectly, you want to make sure that your bender is perfectly set up. So there's two options. That's the first. The option that I like the most and what I've been doing throughout my years is I simply take the bender and I place it the other way, which I will show you in a moment. So when I say I take the bender and I place it the other way, this is basically how I take my bender. I flip it this way, okay? And what I will do is I will turn around and install my conduit into here. Obviously this conduit is already bent, and what I will do is I will make sure I have my mark, and we're going to place the mark here. So the reason why I place that mark is to avoid the dog legs. We don't want the dog legs occurring. And how we go about solving that is simply, I can either take my pencil and slide it in the middle like this. And once I slide my pencil in the middle like that, that's going to give me my center mark. So that's basically my center mark right there. And what I do right after this is I will turn around. I will make sure that this mark is lined up like that, which gives me my straight point on the bender. Now to achieve the second bend, you also have to make sure you do the same exact. So what I do for the second bend is, if I'm going to do a second bend, I'm going to do the same right here. I'm going to mark around in a circle. So I'm going to mark around in the circle like that. And the reason why I do that is to avoid dog legs. As you all know, dog legs are the worst thing that you can have happen on your conduit. Now, what I do is I will take, as you can see, I have my star mark there. Now I'm going to install. Now also, what I do like to do also is I will take this conduit. This is my second mark. I will place my center mark like that. So I have a circle going around and I have a line coming like that. And now what I will do is I will turn around and I will make sure that that mark is sitting in the middle of the bender. So that mark, I want to make sure is sitting in the middle of here. By achieving that, I can avoid dog legs. So how do you take out a dog leg? How do you take out a conduit that's twisted? If your conduit is twisting this way and you want your conduit to go that way, you're going to simply take this end of this conduit and you're going to line it up inside here, depending on where the dog leg is, and you're going to just slightly touch on the pipe. And also you have to make sure that this is not moving. And what I will do a lot of times is I will take my foot. I'm going to show you the simple foot move that I like to do. For all those who are tuning in, I will show you the simple foot move. So my foot move that I like to do is I like to take the bender and I like to kind of hold like that. That way I'm in control of the bend and the bend is not in control of me. So what I mean by that is I'm going to take my bender My bender is going to be sitting like this. My leg is going to rest against the actual bender. My heel or my feet is going to go around the actual bender in front. As you can see, that's how I go about doing it, and I will have full control of this bender. So by me able to lock this bender in place, this bender is not going to go anywhere. And then what I do is I apply pressure while I'm holding the bender towards me. So that is a very simple way of going about bending EMT conduit. Again, you can't go around with the theory, uh, with the practice in the field. You can't go around. Again, how we go about doing that, I take my leg, I wrap it around the actual bender. I have my knee placed on the actual bender itself, and the bender is locked in place. And now I can perform my bend without worrying about dog legs. So again, so so now you've gotten the foot move. I've showed you the foot move. I've showed you how I go about taking control of this EMT bender. I've showed you how to go about taking control without losing the bend or without doglegging the bend. Very important. Again, let's look at the chat box. I want to be honest. Check from the field tonight. Drop a 1 in the chat if you have ever rolled a banana dog leg on a tough run. Panic and hidden the scrap pipe inside a drywall. Trap before anyone saw it. Drop a 2 if you actually know how to fix it on the spot. Let's see the numbers. So anyone who has ever done a bend, if you have ever had a dog leg, do you throw that pipe away or do you actually save that conduit? Because we all know there's a lot of conduit that sits in the scrap on the job site. Tons of conduit daily, and what happens with that conduit we don't know. Probably goes back to the scrap for metal. But again, if you've ever dropped or made a dog leg on a job site and panic, drop 1 in the chat right now. Let me know what you guys did. So I've also showed you the dog leg trick. When you made a dog leg on the conduit, the simple way to get rid of that dog leg is simply by taking your bender, taking your conduit. If this is a dog leg that you have, and if that dog leg is going that way, okay, and you want this dog leg to go that way, what you're going to do is you're going to take the conduit, you're going to install it in the bender, you're going to turn it sideways. Sideways is how you're going to be doing it. You're going to eyeball your conduit. You're going to make sure that your conduit is straight. and then you're going to simply place your bender on the floor, and you're going to perform your bend slightly as you go. So that's basically how you go about doing or trying to figure out your dog legs, fix your dog legs. Very simple. Once you've made some progress on the job of simply bending EMT conduit. If you haven't done EMT conduit before, taking out a dog leg is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. Imagine bending EMT conduit for the first time. So imagine trying to take a dog leg out for the first time. It becomes very hard if you don't know what you're doing. So practice, again, makes perfect. So we're going to go on to the next topic, which is going to be the tree bend saddle, where everyone has issues with. Tree bend saddle, as you can see, I have the tree bend saddle sitting right here. So I'm going to shift this over a little here. And this is what you call a tree bend saddle. As you can see, I had it perfectly lined up on the board here. And here I have it lined up also. So what that is, I'm going to show you the distance in between that. So I'm going to show you guys the distance. I should get a bigger one of those, eh? I'm going to show you guys. So this is a 2-inch PVC conduit for all those who are tuning in to the live stream. If you are going over an obstacle, let's say this is your obstacle, this is a lot bigger than this. So you have to account for this if you're going to be going over an obstacle. You cannot put your pipe over this spot, or sorry, you cannot put your conduit saddle over this spot if you've made the measurements for here. So I'm going to slide this. As you can see, it's not going through. This is a 2-inch conduit. So in order to achieve a bend like that, you'll probably need a 2.5 bend. So we're going to take our measurement. This this PVC conduit right here from the so this is more than, we call it 2 inch because of from inner to inner, but this is actually a little bit bigger than 2 inch, and on here it says 2.5. So let's see what this mark is right here. So that's my mark here, 6 centimeters, or better known as 600 mils. And what that is you're below this here. As you can see, 6 inches, 600 mils is way off. So this will never go under here, because this needs to be a lot bigger. So the problem with the tree bend saddle is a lot of guys don't know how to do your measurements. They don't know how to go over obstacles. They've never done it before. They were never taught. So when it comes time to go over an obstacle, that's what's going to happen. If you don't know how to go over the obstacle, you're simply going to mess up on the bend. Very important to always make sure when going over obstacles, make sure that you're not wasting the conduit. So again, a lot of guys are on the, so 2-inch conduit, very important when you're using the 2-inch conduit. And again, don't forget also to check your temperature. When you check your temperature inside the conduit, you simply turn it on and you simply point the laser inside of here, and it's going to show you what is going on. It's going to give you the temperature that the conduit is heating up. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is scanning right here, and I'm scanning for temperature. I do the same thing over here. I'm scanning for heat, and you can see it's rising, it's rising, it's rising, it's rising. So that's how I go about scanning inside of the actual conduit. So very important, very important. Again, when it comes to OESC, so what we're going to do now is so 45 degree and 22 degree. So right here would be your 45 degree. So let me show you. When you're making your saddle bends, you have two marks that you're going to be using. You're going to be using the 22.5, and you're also going to be using the 45. So the 45 is basically what you're going to be bending at. So what you're going to do is you're going to place it on your bender, and you're going to, if this is your center mark, you're going to take that and you're going to bend it down. Okay, you're going to bend it down, and then what you're going to do is your two outer bends. So your two outer bends, which are these two bends here. So you have these two bends that are 22.5. This will be your first bend, which will be your center. That's going over the obstacle. And that's basically how you come about getting a tree bend saddle. So very important, tree bend saddle. When bending tree bend saddle, make sure the measurements, you have your measurements correctly. Now we're going to go to the rule that supports the actual conduit installation. So here what I have is my code book, and we're going to open up the code book and we're going to go to that rule, and that rule is 12-1406. 12-1406. There are some other rules inside of here also. So 12 1406, which is here, and that's your supports. So basically what that is saying is electrical metallic tubing shall be installed as a complete system and shall be securely fastened in place within 1 meter of each outlet box, junction box, cabinets, couplings, or fitting, and the spacing between support shall be in accordance with rules 12-1010. So what we're going to do, this is basically sending me back to 12-1010, and we're going to go back to 12-1010. So 12-1010, and here it is, 12-1010, maximum spacing of conduit support. It also tells you to see Appendix B. Number 1, all rigid conduit of one size shall be securely attached to hangers or to a solid surface with the maximum spacing of the points of support not greater than A, 1.5 meter for 16 and 21 trade size conduit, B, 2 meters for 27 and 35 trade size conduit, and C, 3 meters for 41 trade size conduit and larger. 2, rear rigid metal conduit of mixed size are run in a group. The conduit support shall be arranged so that maximum support spacing will be that given in sub-rule 1 for the smallest conduit. 3, when flexible metal conduit is installed, it shall be secured by straps, cables, ties, or a type specifically approved for the purpose or other devices at intervals not exceeding 1.5 meter and within 3 millimeters on each side of every outlet box or fitting, except where flexible metal conduit is fish, and B, for a length not over 900 millimeters or terminals where flexibility is necessary. Okay. You also have expansion and contraction of conduit. Tells you to see Appendix B. In locations subject to extreme temperature changes, provision shall be made for expansion and contraction in long runs of rigid conduit in the form of approved expansion joints, or in the case of a surface-mounted rigid metal conduit only, 290 bends in the conduit run. If expansion joints are used with metal raceway, bounding jumpers shall be provided in accordance with Rule 10-614. Conductors in conduit, 12-104. Conductors installed in metal conduits and flexible metal conduits shall be in accordance with Rule 12-910. Rigid PVC conduit, okay, 12-1100. Rigid PVC conduit shall be permitted for exposed and concealed work above and below ground in accordance with the rules for threaded rigid metal conduit, subject to the provision of rules 2-132 and 12-1102 to 12-1122. Rigid PVC conduit shall be permitted in cinders or cinder concrete without the grouting referred to in Rule 12-9362 being required. Restrictions on use. 12-1102. Restrictions on use. Rigid PVC conduit shall not be used where enclosed in terminal installation. Rules 12-1104. It says temperature limitation. See Appendix B. 1. Rigid PVC conduit shall not be used where normal conditions are such that any part of the conduit is subject to a temperature in excess of 75 degrees Celsius. 2. Subrule 1 shall not prevent the use of insulated conductors having temperatures rated in exceed of 75 degrees Celsius, but such conductors shall not have amplicity exceeding those of 90 degrees Celsius conductors, regardless of their temperature rating. Okay, so that is a bit of the rules here that we have to basically follow. And here you have what you have here is rigid types EB1 and DB2/ES2 PVC conduit. Use permitted. See Appendix B. Rigid types EB1 and DB2/ES2 PVC conduit and fittings shall be permitted to be used A. for installation underground in accordance with Rule 12-930, except that type EB1 conduit shall be laid with its entire length and encased or embedded in at least a 50mm envelope or masonry or poured concrete, or in walls, floors, and ceilings where encased or embedded in at least 50mm of masonry or poured concrete. Restrictions on use. Rigid types EB1 and DB2/ES2 conduit and fitting shall not be used above ground except as permitted by Rule 12-1150B. So if I go over to Rules 12-1, if I go to you, so that is referring me back to this rule here. And it says in walls, floors, and ceilings where encased or embedded in at least 50mm of masonry or poured concrete. So rigid type EB1 and DB2/ES2 conduit and fitting shall not be used above ground except as permitted by Rule 12-1150B. That's it right here. And it says in walls, floors, and ceilings where encased or embedded in at least 50mm of masonry or poured concrete in walls, floors, and ceilings. So basically what that is saying is you can use it, but it has to be in walls, ceilings, and so on, or it has to be embedded in 50mm of concrete. That's basically what that rule is saying. So again, that is rules OESC Rule 12-1406 for supporting conduit. So because pulling wire creates heavy friction, tension, your straps must be legally within 1 meter of every termination box. Who is using one-hole straps versus two-hole straps on masonry walls this week? So again, one-hole straps, I'm going to show you what a one-hole strap is. So what we call a one-hole strap. This is basically what we call a one-hole strap. And this is basically what we call a two-hole strap. Two totally different. One secures the pipe on both sides. The other one, he just secures it with one screw. that's basically how it is, and that's how they're made. Me, of course, I use both, depending on the situation. So again, one hole strap and two hole straps, totally different. So again, for all those who have tuned in to tonight's live stream, I would like to thank you guys all for tuning in. Don't forget to, don't forget, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on my bigger channel, Fabian Electrical Services Inc. And also, if you are new to the channel, make sure your notification is turned to all. That way you don't miss when I go live or when I drop my videos. And again, I'd like to thank you guys all. Don't forget to watch the next video that's coming up on the screen.